What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So let me ask you a question. Are you tired of the Nintendo Direct rumors yet? Well, get ready because it looks like August is going to be full of them. However, this time it might be a bit more of a reliable source than we've been used to kind of recently. However, a lot of recent Nintendo Direct rumors have come true. They just haven't been full-fledged Nintendo Directs. We're gonna get into that one today. Also, Microsoft, as we had figured, was gonna be launching xCloud, of course, later on this fall. We now know that date, and it looks like they are gonna be going big even later on today as they have some sort of announcement planned with Samsung. And we see a patent that has hit the internet now from Sony that appears to show, as some people are wondering, a PlayStation 5 Pro? We'll talk about that and more today, guys. As always, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. It helps out a ton. And if you're brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below as we head towards 500,000 subscribers. And we're going to start today with Scalebound. I know, right? We hear about Scalebound off and on, but a lot of times that comes from whenever Platinum Games does an interview and it comes up. While it wasn't something that set the world on fire when it was first being shown, there are a lot of people that look at it and at least say, okay, well, that was Microsoft trying something new there. It just didn't seem to work out between Platinum and Microsoft. Well, it does sound like Platinum, and specifically Hideki Kamiya, they're still up for it, as Kamiya kind of put the ball in Microsoft's court once again, even having a message directly for Phil Spencer. And we also think, man, it would have been really nice to have that kind of opportunity, but it's not for us to say. Kamiya is just adding, if you want to see it again, please send a letter to Phil Spencer. This is from Atsushi Inaba, and then to follow up, Hideki Kamiya says, Phil, let's do it again together. Okay, so Platinum Games is certainly still interested, it seems, as we've heard from them a couple of times with Scalebound, but Microsoft does hold the rights for Scalebound still. I do wonder how excited people would get if that was something that Microsoft wanted to do. Keep in mind, Microsoft has said several times that they are seeking out Japanese developers, possibly an entire studio that they can pick up and bring in. It's not going to be Platinum. They seem pretty good where they are now in terms of their investment from Tencent. But it wouldn't surprise me if Microsoft maybe did take another look at Scalebound, hearing all this stuff from Platinum, and said, you know what, that was a fairly unique game that had some interest and obviously would work a bit better than, say, Halo in the Japanese audience, the Japanese markets. So why don't we take a shot at that? It's something to keep in mind as it does keep coming up. Also, here's something to keep in mind going forward, because this is something that could maybe pop up in other regions. But on the Japan eShop, there is a pretty sizable sale for first-party games. Things like Link's Awakening are marked down like 20 to 25%, and several others, Luigi's Mansion. Now, some of these, I think like Fire Emblem, were already overpriced outside of Japan, and they've just kind of marked them down to what like a $60 price would be for other regions. However, there is a lot on sale here, and you can see some of them, and it looks like it's held from August 6th and will be going for a little over a week. But the amount of stuff here does make me wonder if this is a sale that is also planned for other regions coming up, kind of a end of summer sale, if you will, throughout August. Just keep that in mind. You can also, I guess, technically go on the Japan eShop store because, of course, the Switch is region free, and take advantage of those sales now. But keep in mind, there is a good chance that this is going to be something that gets announced elsewhere as well. Oh, and if you're like me and you're very curious about what the PlayStation 5 and the accessories look like with a 360-degree view so you can see behind, say, the DualSense, Sony has now added that to their website. You can see some of this here with the DualSense doing a nice little rotation, 360-degree rotation there. I didn't see one for the console, as a lot of us are still really curious about just the back ports on the system. Keep in mind, we're about 3 months out, we think, from the system launching, and we still don't know about the ports on the back of the system. It is a little odd, although we are still talking about things like pre-orders and even pricing and release dates, so we are kind of coming down to the wire here for a lot of information, but Sony is slowly drip-feeding info out there, and this is just another one. If you want a good look at some of these accessories, though, head on over to Sony's website, and you could do a nice little rotation. It does look like the DualSense does have a microphone on the front, one on the back, and there's another spot there. That might be like a reset button that you like press with like a pin if something happens with the controller, but we do know they were using multiple microphones to try to drown out background noise, but go ahead and take a look. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're gonna start right away with the Nintendo Direct rumors for August. Is it just every month? I feel like there's Nintendo Direct rumors. Listen, I get so many things sent to me online. I do know that people will send a lot of rumors through and I'll be notified of it. Hey, you're getting these in, you should check these out. And they're like rumors from 4chan and there are those lists that get made up. And I never make videos on those because most of the time they are incorrect. However, August does seem like the time for Nintendo to start at least talking about their holiday. It's only 3 months away, right? But doesn't look like we might have to wait too much longer as a couple of people now are kind of hinting at something from Nintendo. And I wanted to bring this up because I also want to caution people on kind of their hype level. As we do know now, Nintendo has like 8 different directs apparently that they can have. They just threw in the third-party showcase and they already told us that there would be another one later on. And we still have the Pokemon DLC to go over. It could be a Pokemon Direct. There's so many things, but this comes from Jeff Grubb, and he's been right several times, obviously going through the summer on different events. Remember, there were a lot of people who doubted him about that Nintendo Direct Mini happening, especially, I mean, we came down to like, what, midnight the next day, and everyone was like, oh, what happened, Jeff? Where's that direct? And then it just dropped. And he's like, there it is. So, hey, I'll give it to Jeff. He's been dead on several times now going through this summer. So when he posts this on Twitter, where he obviously updates his listing from Nintendo being a wild card that he had been posting to now moving it between August 11th and August 22nd, it is having some people take some notice, right? They're saying, oh, wait, Nintendo's doing something in there? And he hasn't really said too much, but, yeah, most likely. I'll say that. Nintendo is doing stuff in August, okay? What they are going to do, that is the big question, but it does sound like they do have some games to be announced. We talked about No More Heroes getting a rating. That sounds like a good one to announce in a direct of some kind. My concern here is that people are going to expect a big direct, and it won't be that, okay? That is my concern. Now, I do think Nintendo could round out the rest of the year with that Mario 3D collection and a few other things in a Direct Mini. That is very possible. And then we don't get that full Direct even until January when they have maybe next year kind of more planned out and clear cut with development cycles getting more in line. However, there is a possibility that we could get 2 events this month, as on Reset Era, John Harker, who has been again, dead on with a lot of things, saying that there could at least be 2. Now, does that mean that it's at least 2 Nintendo Directs? No, that could mean that it is a Smash Direct with a character unveiling, could mean that it's a Pokemon Direct, could mean it is that third-party showcase that we already know is coming, so be careful with those expectations. That's what I'm going to tell you now, okay? I think Nintendo is still going to have some things for this holiday that are not announced yet, and they will be very close to their release date when they announce them. I will say that one. So don't expect don't expect Breath of the Wild 2 to release this year, right? I don't think anyone really should be at this point, but don't expect that. The 3D collection for Mario makes sense, a Pikmin 3 port, and then Mario 3D World Deluxe. Those are probably the big ones, and then maybe something like a No More Heroes 1 thrown in there, and maybe one other surprise, okay? So that sounds more reasonable than like, oh, Breath of the Wild 2, Bayonetta 3, we're set up for the rest of the year. But keep an eye out because it wouldn't be too much longer before Nintendo starts talking. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft and xCloud. Now, of course, xCloud is a way for you to play your Xbox games through Game Pass Ultimate and streaming. So let's say you're over at a friend's house. This was a very good example that Microsoft pointed out. You're over at a friend's house, they're playing Gears 5 on their Xbox, and you want to join in, but you don't have your Xbox with you. They have an extra controller, they hand it to you, and then you start up your phone, and boom, you can jump in and play through streaming on xCloud. I thought that was a really good example for Microsoft to show as a way to have someone jump in without necessarily having their system right then and there, right? It's kind of a cool way to pick up and play a game like that while you're on the go. You can see they released a massive post over on their news.xbox site, and they talk about how beginning September 15th, we'll have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate members can play more than 100 games from the cloud on their Android phone or tablet. Now, my only concern here is they mention nothing about, say, iOS or PC. Those are still the 2 big things I would like to hear about, especially since iOS, obviously, iPhones are huge. As they say here in this post, later on today, there will be an event with Samsung, and it sounds like Microsoft is going to have an announcement alongside of Samsung for one of their newer flagship phones to be, quote-unquote, xCloud ready. So it'll probably come with xCloud, it'll probably be somewhat designed for better input. Who knows with that, but it could also just be branding, marketing, and Microsoft is already preloaded with xCloud on your Samsung phone when you get it. I mean, that's big. That's what Microsoft's been pushing for, to try to reach 2 billion gamers. Well, cell phones is the way to get there because we all have a cell phone, but they do have to work on PC, as I think being able to launch some of these games through your browser would be big time, right? Because you can still use a keyboard and mouse. I think at that point, you're also more stationary, so using an Xbox controller without having to use a clip and all this for your phone makes more sense. Oh, and speaking of controllers, a little further down that listing, they say you can also play with your Xbox One Bluetooth wireless and your PlayStation DualShock 4 controllers. I mean, come on, that's obviously timed and even targeted towards Sony, since now Microsoft is going to be supporting the PlayStation 4 controller more than Sony is with their own system. Keep in mind though, PlayStation Now, you can still use the DualShock 4. It was just funny to see Microsoft point this out. Anyway, coming up in September, the first month they have set up for $1, and then going forward from there, $14.99. Game Pass Ultimate, that of course gets you the Game Pass library. Xbox Live Gold, as they still point out, which again, keep in mind that could be going away, and then xCloud streaming. So a lot of value there for $15 a month. Not bad. I do like xCloud only because it's not like their big platform, like to the point where they are like Stadia and it's like, that's it. You have to buy it. You buy the game normally and you don't necessarily have ownership of it. Microsoft's upfront, they have their subscription service in place and it comes with a bunch of games. It feels like there's value with xCloud, whereas it doesn't really with Stadia, right? And of course, you can just play on your Xbox. If you don't really care about xCloud, that's still there. There's options and there's value. That's kind of something that Stadia is missing right now. Next up, let's talk about Mario 64. Remember we had all of those big leaks that were coming out, right? They were called the Giga Leak. We were talking about how there were even people's names and address, all this crazy stuff, floor plans, but we've seen some really fun prototypes, some interesting ideas that Nintendo was kind of moving around. And now we're even seeing some puzzle pieces fitting together that show the development time of Mario 64. And it's a lot shorter than you might think for a flagship game that launched and helped to move Nintendo 64s right then and there, and went on to be a game that people still speedrun. It took 622 days. That's right. Well under 2 years to create Mario 64. And the way this was found, as you can see here, there was a tweet that was put out there by Encumber05 that says, thanks to a file called copyright in the Super Mario 64 folder, we now know exactly the days when Super Mario 64 development started and ended. The project began on September 7th, 1994 and was finished on May 20th, 1996. That is super impressive. I know you might look at Mario 64 now and say, oh, it doesn't look as amazing as games now, and that's why games now take, 5, 6, 7 years to create. But at the time, that was cutting edge and it performed super well, and it had to be built all around what was, at the time, a brand new mechanic and idea with this single joystick that they were going to bring to consumers with their Nintendo 64 system, and to have it kind of work in 3D space. That was a big deal to kind of wrap our heads around then. Think about trying to develop and get that game out in time for a launch in less than 2 years of a development cycle. Impressive stuff there. And we still play it now, so yeah, that, to me, it makes it more amazing, but pretty cool stuff to find. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a patent that was found for Sony. And what's interesting about this patent is a lot of people are looking at this wondering if this was a plan for a system different from the PS5 or plans for a PS5 Pro coming up. And the reason for that is the patent, which you can see some of here, mentions the idea of using 2 GPUs rather than one single large GPU. As they say, it would help to save money if they used multiple GPUs that would then work together with a CPU or even multiple CPUs to, of course, create a game console from, and have a fairly powerful one at that. Now, the issue with this, to me anyway, this patent, is it was filed a while ago, January 2019. And that means that it would have been well before I think they reached any serious final stages of the PlayStation 5, as there were even rumors about the PS5 supposedly coming out last year and they had to scrap and move stuff around. And while that's still a rumor, there have been some people backing that idea. So it is something to consider on that side. But to have a PlayStation 5 Pro already planned out would be a bit surprising to me. I mean, it's Sony though. They always are working on something, much like other companies are always R&Ding things. But this could also be for something with cloud gaming, as has also been pointed out. They could even be working on maybe their own blades that they would have in the data center, right? With multiple CPUs and GPUs working together. There's a lot of possibilities here, and it is interesting to see so many people really jump to the idea of a PS5 Pro already. The PS5 isn't even out yet, and we're talking about a PS5 Pro already. I kind of think that these systems might not need like a jump or a mid-generation refresh. I think they're kind of being built now to last a solid 5 to 6 years before we move on. Sony believes in generations though, so you can't really count them out. They do like making new hardware to push things around it, like TVs and all this, and if 8K really takes off, hey, here comes the PS5 Pro for 8K. But to me, based on it being a fairly old patent, technically, almost 2 years old now, I would say it's just that, a patent that they were playing around with the idea of using multiple GPUs to save money, and they decided, AMD might not be ready with that right now, and we're just going with a single GPU, CPU setup like usual, and kind of fine tune it the way Mark Cerny has. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Cody saying, tell them to put my manuals back into the game case too. I feel like all these companies are giving us less while charging more. Yeah, game manuals went away a while ago, unfortunately. I remember every Vita game I'd get, I'd be like, oh, this is great, and open up, no manual, right? And as those started to go out of circulation and game companies just started dropping them in as digital replacements where you go in and read them through like a PDF that's part of the cartridge, it was kind of annoying. But I will say, I'm getting kind of used to and conditioned to that, because like I got a GameCube game the other day, it didn't have a manual, and I opened it up, didn't even think about it at first. I'm looking at the disc and I look over, I'm like, close it up, and I'm like, oh wait, this isn't complete. Because we're to that point where we don't expect there to be a manual there. And you know, I kind of miss that we used to get a really cool, at times, art book almost, right? Some of those manuals were really thick and they had extra pages that showed concept art, and it was a better time. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video, guys. Hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Yes, even the Nintendo Direct rumors. It seems like every month we're talking about them, but like Nintendo has to talk about something in August, right? Otherwise, is there going to be a Nintendo holiday game? Let me know about that one down below. And then Microsoft, the Xbox, and xCloud. What do you think about that launching? And have you already tried it, or are you planning to try it out because you're already a Game Pass Ultimate member anyway? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.